All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We're so excited to be starting off our first ever Future Faces of Healthcare event. We have two amazing speakers here with us today, Joanne and Zahra. Thank you so much for both joining us. My name's Anna.
And my name is Anissa, and we are your 2021 Future Faces of Healthcare interns. And we are honored to have you all here with us today. So thank you.
So now before we dive into our event, I just want to go over a few housekeeping rules for everybody. Just a reminder that mics and cameras are off for everyone except for our speakers and our hosts. If you do have anything to say, feel free to raise your hand and we can unmute you, or feel free to comment in the chat and we'll make sure to monitor that. And just lastly, I know everyone's really excited about the prize draw at the end, so make sure to stick around for that. We are giving away 3 prizes as a reminder: a $50 Amazon gift card, $50 Foundation Physiotherapy gift card that you can use towards products or services. And then my personal favorite is the 1-hour free massage at Foundation Physio. And that's valued $115, so it's a pretty good prize. So for those of you guys who don't know, Future Faces of Healthcare is an internship program that was started by Matt and Raj, who are the co-founders of Foundation Physio. And these are clinics in Toronto that provide a number of different rehab services such as physio, massage, and chiro. And big congratulations to the both of them for recently celebrating their 10-year anniversary. So getting into Future Faces a little bit. So a little about why it was created. I'm sure we can all agree that 2020 was a big year of change, and there was a lot of big changes and challenges along the way. But despite all of that, it got us all talking a lot more openly about barriers and different forms of oppression that Black, Indigenous, and people of color face in their daily lives. And now healthcare is really not exempt from those barriers. So as a clinic that was founded upon the values of immigrants and people of color, Matt and Raj recognized the need to improve diversity within healthcare, and they began this internship program.
Now, this is where we come in. So what is our vision? Well, our vision was to improve and to continuously improve accessibility of high quality rehab services to those belonging to the minority and marginalized communities. We also want to encourage BIPOC students to pursue careers in this field. Now, we understand that healthcare should no longer cater to an elite few, but rather to everyone. And that's why Future Faces of Healthcare platform was created. Now, for those who may not be aware, over the last couple of months, we have created an Instagram with the handle Future Faces of HC. So for everyone who's been following it so far, we appreciate it and continue to spread the word. Now, this is not only geared towards educating our youth about the different possibilities and careers that exist within healthcare, but also to define key terms, concepts, and to address many misconceptions that exist within the healthcare system. So a little bit about myself. My name is Anissa, as I said earlier. I am a third-year chiropractic student at CMCC. I graduated from McMaster University in 2019, where I completed a Bachelor of Science degree in kinesiology with a minor in French. Oui, je parle français. So throughout my years, I did play varsity soccer at McMaster, and it might have been a blessing in disguise, but in the end, all my injuries actually led me to the career that I'm in today. So throughout my rehab process, not only did I gain a tremendous amount of respect for the chiropractic profession, but I also fell in love with it. My only concern was the lack of BIPOC clinicians that were actually present in the field. So this actually fueled me even more to pursue a career in healthcare and continue to fight for diversity and equality for our Black and Indigenous people of color.
So I'll also briefly introduce myself. Like I said, my name's Anna, and I am a first-year physiotherapy student at McMaster. I actually just graduated from Mac with my undergrad degree in biology, and I did a double minor in psych and sociology. I had always heard of physiotherapy, but I didn't exactly know what it was, and it wasn't until I got injured in my first year of university that, and I started my own rehab process, that I started to really recognize the importance of these kinds of services. But then I also found that when I would tell people, like in my family or my friends, what physio was and what I was doing in my treatment, they didn't know what it was, and they were confused, like how it was actually working to heal me. And so I really saw how specifically within my community, the South Asian community, that there was a lack of awareness and a lack of use of these services. And so I really want to be able to bring that to all types of communities so that everyone can benefit from these services. So without further ado, I'm going to let Anissa introduce one of our speakers.
All right, now to the good part. So our first speaker is Zahra Hashwani Bruce, who is a registered massage therapist with the Toronto Raptors, as well as the Toronto Athletic Club Sports Medicine Clinic. Now, Zahra is a well-educated individual with over 20 years of experience. She began providing massage therapy services for the Toronto Raptors in 2017 and was an auxiliary medical staff that aided the team during their 2019 championship run. She joined the team in the Orlando NBA bubble and committed to the 2020-2021 Raptors season temporary relocation to Tampa amid the COVID-19 pandemic. For Zahra, making a difference through her profession is very important. And every day that she is able to aid or augment in the improvement of an individual's quality of life is an accomplishment. Zahra continues to advocate for the importance of massage as a preventative and recovery-based muscle therapy for athletic performance and general health and well-being. Throughout her practice, Zahra has gained extensive knowledge in sport and rehabilitation therapy, specializing in the treatment and care of professional athletes, some being the NBA, the NHL, Toronto Marlies, Toronto Argonauts, Olympic athletes, high-performance athletes, marathon runners, and even triathletes. In 2020, Zahra actually co-founded Open Dialogue Canada, which we'll be talking about later on. And this is a non-for-profit organization that brings awareness to racism in healthcare. Outside of work, Zahra is a sports enthusiast who enjoys running, hiking, yoga, and fitness. That being said, thank you, Zahra, for being here, and we are honored to have you as one of our speakers. And next up, Anna will introduce our second speaker for the evening.
All right, very excited to hear about your experiences, Zahra. Next up, we have Joanne Ukposidolo. So similar to Anissa and myself, she is a McMaster alumni, having completed her undergrad there with a double major in biology and psychology. She then went on to complete her 2 years of master's program from University of Toronto in physical therapy, graduating in 2010. So Joanne is a registered pelvic floor physiotherapist and is the co-founder and co-owner of Womb Care Clinic. So this is a reproductive health organization which centers around BIPOC women with pelvic health issues such as uterine fibroids and endometriosis. Joanne is also passionate about treating the symptoms of these conditions in addition to pregnancy and postpartum care. One of her goals in life is to create a positive, direct, and generational impact by empowering women to have a healthy relationship with their pelvic and reproductive health. As an empathetic healthcare provider, Joanne observed the significant discrepancy in how healthcare is experienced among communities. So in intending to make a change, she, along with Zahra and Elise Clark, co-founded Open Dialogue Canada. So Zahra and Joanne, would you guys both be able to share a little bit about Open Dialogue with us?
For sure. Thank you so much for those warm words. And we're going to talk a little bit about what Open Dialogue is and how it began and how it started. And you have heard a lot about us, Zahra and myself, and we really do want to acknowledge our third co-founder and part of the trifecta, Elise Clark, who is a powerhouse unto herself. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to be here today, but she sends her regards and she wishes the best. So how we got started was in 2020, and we can all agree that 2020 was a very pivotal year. With everything that was going on with COVID, we were forced into lockdown. So the things that were done were brought furthermore into the light. It started off with Ahmaud Arbery's death and murder in February 23rd. Then Breonna Taylor's killing in her bed in March 13th. And then the highly publicized death of George Floyd on May 25th, 2020.
Jacob Blake, a 29-year-old Black man, was left paralyzed after being shot by a white police officer 7 times in the back. This happened on August 23rd, 2020. I was in the NBA bubble for the resumption of play during the pandemic, and the athletes were hurting, and you can really feel that intense emotion. And that ignited the strike or the stoppage in play across the sports in North America.
So
The emotions we felt during that time were very intense. And what we're going to do is show a clip of our co-founder, Elise Clark's description of how these things impacted her and the genesis of Open Dialogue.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here and allowing me to record this for you. Just tell you a little bit about how OBC got started for me. Basically, I was experiencing a lot of pain and suffering around George Floyd's murder in 2020. And at that time, we were in a lockdown, and the clinic that Joanne and Zahra and I worked at was closed. Once a week, the two heads of the clinic would hold meetings so that we could figure out next steps, how to take care of our clients and patients. But the pain that I was experiencing, I'm sure others were feeling as well, but meetings would come and go, and it was never brought up by anybody. And I was up crying every night, was not sleeping. It had really turned my world upside down. My background with my father is Jamaican, and a large part of my family is Jamaican. My mom's side, she's British Caucasian. And as a child, I really identified with my Black heritage and my Jamaican heritage. I was surrounded by so much of my family, and I was slept awake really hard by George Floyd's murder. And it was upsetting and hurting that it wasn't being discussed, and the whole world was talking about it. You couldn't get away from it. And I was having bodily and visceral reactions involuntarily when I'd be out on the streets and walking around and like right with my daughter. And so I decided that I was going to write an email to the clinic, to my team, basically, asking how everyone was doing. But not only that, it just brought up so many questions for me around inclusivity in our clinic. I had recognized but hadn't been actively really trying to understand or change the fact that we didn't see a lot of BIPOC coming into our clinic. We have a lot of BIPOC on our team, which was great, which is another reason why I was why I couldn't understand why what had happened, what was going on with basically this movement that was happening, why we weren't really talking or engaging about or asking ourselves these questions about our own biases, and also how are we including a wider range of a client or patient within our care. And I just wanted to I needed my own support, and I wanted to be able to support others, and I wanted us to have an open conversation about it. So I wrote an email to the clinic, to the whole team, asking if we could dialogue about this. Also, if we could hire somebody or get together and learn more, educate ourselves more on these issues, very prevalent issues that we have not been facing or talking about, and have a fear of talking about it, actually. And I really did. I recognized and wanted so badly to gain more knowledge and understand how to talk about these things, and how to really uncover my own biases, I suppose, and more than that, still have a hard time with it, which is why we sort of have started to open this up more to other not just be within our clinic and to sort of have a wider reach. So that's how it started for me. When I sent the email, I quickly got a response from Joanne and Zahra and a few others on the team actually, just to talk. Basically, that was the main thing that Zahra and Joanne and I wanted to do. And we had a really deep and emotional conversation about what we were experiencing. And I realized at that point that, yeah, we were suffering. There was pain. There was lots there that needed to be talked about, and we were maybe talking about it within our own families or within our own small groups, but not where we spend a lot of our time. Which at that point we were not, but it is where we typically would spend most of our time is with that team and how we care for others. So there was a need there, and we decided to start a book club and read. I will pass this off to Joanne and Zahra now. Thank you for listening to this.
So as Elise said, it did start off as a very intimate setting within the clinic, and we realized that it needed to go further. And that's when we created Open Dialogue Canada, a not-for-profit organization. Our pillars are based on 3 tenets: education, dialogue, and engagement. So Open Dialogue Canada is a platform for healthcare providers who are committed to improving the quality of care experienced by Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So we intend to build the capacity of the healthcare sector to address the impacts of racism through the 3 pillars of education, dialogue, and engagement.
We assemble expertise and guide our actions through programs of continuing education and professional development, creating and facilitating dialogue amongst healthcare providers, dissemination of evidence-based knowledge and best practice, and supporting the navigation of barriers to the delivery of quality healthcare. These actions will hopefully further a growth mindset that will be with continued efforts of becoming leaders and better providers of high quality, equitable care for BIPOC communities. Our mission to become leaders of equitable healthcare is centered around our vision for Black, Indigenous, and people of color to have quality, equitable healthcare experiences free of bias and racial discrimination.
So our values are very specific. We value cultural humility, which is meeting patients where they are at and allowing them to explain what their culture means to them. Compassion, empathy, equity, not equality, professionalism, and understanding. So as healthcare providers, we understand the significant impact that we have on our clients' well-being. We're with them. We can connect with them. Okay. We started off with some events. Lana James, who was talking a webinar on race-based data, which is so important, but unfortunately is not collected here in Canada. So you can't change what you don't measure. So her webinar was pivotal on that front. We then followed up with a webinar with Dr. Providence and Janelle Peters, talking about diabetes within the BIPOC community and the physical and psychological impacts that this disease has. So now we're going to turn it over. Thank you guys for listening about what ODC, and we are ready to answer your questions.
Yeah, so Open Dialogue's mission and values definitely align with ours at Future Faces. So we're really happy to have you guys here today. Thank you for sharing the history about how Open Dialogue got started and just showing us the very real impact that racism has, not only within the system, and not only on those who are murdered, but also how this radiates out towards the BIPOC community. So we're really looking forward to hearing more about your thoughts regarding these issues. So without further ado, I'm going to let Anissa get started with our first question.
Perfect. Thank you, Anna. So audience participants, if you guys have questions along the way, again, feel free to pop them in the chat or use the raise hand emoji, and we'll be happy to answer that as we go. So our first question for you, for Zahra or Joanne, as someone belonging to the BIPOC community, what was your relationship with the field of rehab while growing up? Did you always know what it was? Did you always know what you kind of wanted to do? And what kind of inspired you, essentially?
So I'll go first. So I always knew I wanted to do something in healthcare. I remember going to the doctor or a pediatrician when I was younger, and seeing the colorful murals on the wall and the lollipop that you get after you see the doctor, and how the care that was given was very attentive to young children. And I remember playing at home with my own dolls, and giving that kind of care. So in my mind, I always wanted to provide some sort of care. I wasn't exactly sure which path it would take me to. I ended up going to Western, did my first year in kinesiology, and I liked the program, but I still wanted more. And at that point, being of immigrant parents, money, resources were not readily available. So I was kind of thinking I didn't want to be in school forever. I didn't want to rack up my debt. I still wanted to do something in healthcare. I was doing some research, and someone told me about complementary medicine and healthcare. And I looked into that a little bit further, and did a prep program for massage therapy, a weekend prep program, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. Learning the anatomy and then connecting it directly to client care. It really felt like it resonated with me, and I found a purpose. So, that's how I got involved, or my journey into healthcare, from pediatrician to massage therapist.
Yeah, so Zahra, mine is completely a bit switched. So for me, the doctors is a place I did not want to go to. The first time I actually remember going to the doctors, I was getting a shot. So I was born in Nigeria, and at a certain age, you just get all the shots all at once, okay? And you can really tell people who come from Nigeria at a certain time because they have that mark on their arm. And I remember screaming bloody murder and realizing that this is not it. I did my experience of rehabilitation growing up. There wasn't really a lot. It was only until my youngest brother was playing soccer and he got injured and he started doing physio that I started to see what that looks like and what that would mean and how it greatly impacted his quality of life. So that was when I was open to the idea of like, okay, rehabilitation exists. So that was my relationship of rehab growing up. Yeah.
And I think we can all agree with Zahra. I know there's a lot of students here, so all of us have student debt. I know I do, but again, knowing the program, if it's not right for you, you know when to switch and to, just have that courage to know, okay, I'm not liking it. Why am I wasting my time? Might as well move on. So I do agree, and I feel you on that 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree with like that immigrant mentality of like trying to save that money. I'm an immigrant. I came here when I was 5, so I like completely empathize with that. But yeah, just like talking a little bit more, I mentioned briefly how like within my family, no one really kind of knew what it was, and there was a lot of misconceptions surrounding what physiotherapy actually was. So in your work experiences, I know you guys have like a wide range in clientele. You guys do kind of different stuff. So ranging from women with reproductive issues to elite athletes, have you guys found any common misconceptions regarding the field of rehab or your specific careers?
So in terms of misconceptions, I'll go a step back before we get to clients. For me, it was culturally. I wasn't supposed to be a massage therapist. I was supposed to be a doctor, a lawyer, or married to someone who was a doctor or lawyer, right? Being from immigrant parents. So the stigma or the misconceptions of massage therapy specifically, the stigma attached to it not being fully professional, I'm a woman, I'm a Muslim background, how can I be in that intimate setting, touching people, all those things, how successful are you going to be? Are you going to be able to get a pension? These are the things that immigrant parents want you to have stability on. And I couldn't answer those questions for them. So I took it upon myself to be, an advocate for myself and for the profession, for them to become more aware of the value and benefits in rehabilitative care, right? So, and really, your success is only limited by you, first and foremost, right? And if you advocate for yourself and you learn and you thrive, then it's unlimited, and definitely nobody can question my success right now, 20 plus years where I'm at. That being said, also the mindset changes, right? When you bring awareness and education, my parents are now coming to Raptors games and, very proud of what I'm doing. And it took time, right? It always takes time to change and educate, but it does happen. And so the misconceptions for me was mostly culturally at home, trying to penetrate through the system and into the career.
Yeah, and I think I'll jump on that in terms of like misconception in terms of awareness. For physiotherapy specifically, there was no awareness of what physiotherapy is. So there was no misconception because they weren't even aware that it existed at that point. So it was really just trying to allow my parents to see that, okay, this is a very great profession and this is what can be done about it. So at that point in time, they just really wanted me to succeed. So whatever field that I was in at that point, it needed to be successful. What they say back home is that everyone who is in a medical field is automatically a doctor. So somewhere back there, people think my name is Dr. Joanne. I will let that be. But at this point in time, it's more what bringing awareness in terms of like rehabilitation sciences to my parents and what can be done on that from a business point of view that they could understand. So that they could see the relation to, and that they could see that there was growth behind that and then go from there.
And I believe Robert has a question. So if Robert, do you want to ask your question?
I'm muted? Oh no. What are some of the challenges as being an RMT on a professional sports team as a BIPOC healthcare provider? And my second question is, as a BIPOC who is aspiring to become an RMT, what 3 advices would you give me on this journey?
So thanks, Robert, for the questions. The second part, I think we're going to probably look into a little later. But in terms of the first part, challenges faced as a BIPOC rehab professional, specifically in sports. So with the NBA, close to 80%, if not more, of the athletes are BIPOC, right? Are people of color. So in terms of challenges, I don't necessarily believe, or I haven't experienced any challenges as being a person of color, because there's an automatic connection to your client base, right? There's a similarity. I mean, there's a big difference. I'm 5 feet, they're 7 feet. So there's not that connection, but at the same time, there's some sort of culture that you can connect to. And in our field, like with the MLSC and the Raptors organization, they're very progressive and very diverse and advanced in advocating for diversity, inclusion. So, I didn't experience any challenges per se. The only thing that you need to do is keep learning, keep thriving, keep growing, and be the best at your craft. Yeah.
Perfect. And then I'll just follow up with Robert's question. Why do you think it's meaningful to have BIPOC practitioners in rehab?
So I think I touched on it a little bit. It's about that connection, right? And Elise mentioned it in her clip, or she was alluding to it, right? There's a connection that you directly have with someone who looks like you, or someone who can relate to things that are outside of what's displayed in terms of your injury, right? Because there's more to it than just the strained muscle or the broken bone, right? It's the holistic approach, and you're looking at the individual, you're looking at their home environment, the support system, the food, the nutrition they're eating, right? It's a holistic approach. And so having that representation where you can see and connect and navigate the barriers to quality care, so if someone of South Asian or even a Caribbean background, because my husband is of West Indian background, my kids are biracial, and I'm very familiar with that culture, and if they come to me and they say, how do I help my injury progress, and you can list out, okay, there's nutrition, there's exercise, what do you have available to you? And you can, as opposed to just assuming that they have access, right? Like elite people might have access to, you can basically manipulate the situation so that they can be successful within their own needs and means.
So as Zahra was saying, like having cultural sensitivity is key. And we know that like representation matters. So when you are represented, then you can actually be able to give back to your patient caseload and your patient clients in a very honorable and also very authentic and genuine way. So sometimes what tends to happen is that with patients coming in, and especially within reproductive health situations as well, we really want to make sure that we're meeting them where they are at, and also being able to give them what is necessary for them at that moment in time. So like when we're talking about rehabilitation, it's the quality of life that you lead after the surgery, after the condition, after everything that occurs. So a lot of times BIPOC communities don't know about rehabilitation and how much it can help them thrive. So having someone within the culture or within that community there as a face, bringing awareness, elevates the quality of life. It's proactive. So how many people knew about menstruation cycles? How many people knew about prenatal health? How many people knew about proactively preparing for a knee surgery? How many people knew what the symptoms are of a DVT or blood clot? So all of these things are important, and having us as BIPOC within the rehab setting is key and important, because that information can trickle down towards communities. And we're not just trying to survive. No, we're trying to thrive. And that's where rehab steps in. Rehab is about improving your quality of life, getting you back and even getting you past what you used to love. So representation matters.
Yeah, for sure. That was all really good stuff. Thank you guys both for that. I'm just catching up on some comments in the chat. So Fausta says, I completely agree. My immigrant parents are the same and thought being a doctor was the only / best option. And then Alicia says, so relatable. I've spent a lot of time justifying our profession to our parents and our culture. I could definitely empathize with that. I know for me, spent a lot of time trying to explain to my parents how physio is not just massage therapy. So I know there's a big gap there to fill. But moving on to our next question. So just trying to tie all of this together with everything you guys have been talking about. What do you think we should be doing to try and improve this awareness and access to high quality rehab for these communities? And do you think that our current approach is good, or do you think it's not good enough? What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's a big question, right? It's why we're all here, right? It's what Future Faces of Healthcare is doing. It's what Open Dialogue is doing. It's why the audience is here, right? We believe in equity and equality, for all marginalized, racialized communities. and deserving of best care. So what do? We continue to learn, we continue to grow, we continue to support each other, we continue to galvanize together and make positive change, listen to the needs of our client base and support our coworkers. You know, the first job I had at a school was with a chiropractic clinic who the owner was a part of my religious community. So that representation matters, and that mentorship or that connection there also helps elevate and support each other. You know, it's really about the community galvanizing together to propel forward.
Yeah. So I'm just taking a look at the chat, and Tammy, yeah, we are actually going to just talk about that a little bit. So yes, for sure, what was written in books about BIPOC communities were not for BIPOC communities and not by BIPOC communities. So what is necessary now is to be present, and be present authentically and genuinely. Fill up the space, take up room, be at the table, and continue to be excellent. And also be involved in research, because as we know right now, like Canada does not collect race-based data. So then how are we able to change what we can't measure? How can we navigate through that? Okay. How can we make sure that what is being experienced by BIPOC communities on a grounder level isn't continue to be experienced? On a one-on-one basis, yes, being an individual practitioner, being exceptional, going over and beyond, yes, I'm making an impact. But what about in the larger community? What about within the clinic itself? Okay. So the awareness that we need to bring needs to be continued and even doubled over. And we definitely need to occupy different roles. So in different ways, like when we're all saying like immigrants' mentality is a doctor, lawyer, engineer, that's great. What about all the other spaces that we can occupy and be excellent in? And through that drive change in and collect good data, meaningful data that can actually create change. So I think what we're doing now is great. Is there more to do? For sure. Okay. We are glad that you're here. There's a reason that brought you guys here. And hopefully we're able to continue to push the dial forward as we continue to have these conversations. And not just have the conversation sit and that's it at the end, but to actually contemplate and start moving.
And Tammy, I hope that answered your question. I know it definitely helped a couple of people in the chat. But that being said, I think we're gonna just move on to one of the most important questions that a lot of students are wondering. What is your advice to future current students that might, you know, want to go back into school? What would you just tell them right now?
So I'm always big on continuing to learn and grow, right? That shouldn't ever stop. But for me, I find you can be most successful when you identify your passion and find your purpose and combine that with the skills and education that you received, right? You can be skilled, you can be highly educated, but if there's no passion or purpose behind that, then it can only take you so far, right? Understanding that as healthcare providers, we have a direct impact on the health and well-being of the people we serve, right? So if you're not passionate about that purpose of helping lives, making a difference, then your work will only go so far, right? Because what we do, as I said, is direct. That connection, that energy will be shown and seen and felt. So my advice is find your passion and your purpose and connect that, and be humble in your practice, because it's an honor to help people regardless of who they are.
And I'm going to follow up with that with the most pragmatic thing possible. Your passion and your purpose are great. However, if your passion and purpose is not a doctor, lawyer, and engineer, you have issues. And this is why one of the best pieces of advice that I should have gotten when I was younger was to actually get a mentor and a sponsor. Because when you're walking into unfamiliar terrain where there's no one like you, there's no template, you need a community in order to support you, in order to lay out the landscape of what could be. You need people in order to help mentor you, okay, and also to sponsor you. So when we talk about mentor and sponsorship, it's two different things, and it could be one and the same person. So a mentor is someone who provides advice, support, and feedback. A sponsor is someone who has senior positions and uses their influence to advocate on behalf of you. A mentor can turn into a sponsor. A mentor and a sponsor, they don't need to look like you. And that's harsh reality, but it's true. Especially when there are people in a field that don't look like you. Mm-hmm. You can't be your own mentor and sponsor. You will burn out. And another advice is to build a community of people, like-minded individuals who are passionate about excelling in their chosen field. If it's in the same field as you, great. If it's in opposite fields, great. But there needs to be a connection somewhere, somehow. So passion, purpose, mentorship, sponsorship. With all those four components, you can definitely pave a way to success. And what success means, that's defined entirely by you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also your parents, but by you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Zahra and Joanne. That's it from us in terms of our questions. Now, before we move on to the opportunity available with Open Dialogue, we have one question in the chat from Robert we're just going to address. Robert wants to know, are there opportunities for RMT students to do their placements with either the Toronto Raptors or the Raptors 905?
So that would actually be a question directed straight to the HR for both Raptors or Raptors 905. Yeah, I know with COVID, they're very strict on who's coming in and out. But what you could do is just maybe connect with me on LinkedIn, and I can possibly forward you the HR contact. Yeah, if you can't find it, on the website alone, you can do that. That'd be great. Yeah.
And Robert, in case you're wondering, we're going to have a slide at the end with everyone's information, so don't worry about getting that down. We'll have it all for you. And yeah, no problem. And then I guess we can move on to Joanne and Zahra. You guys have something to share.
Yes, we sure do. So as Anissa just mentioned, there are internship opportunities for both. And we really just want to talk about what's going on within our internship specifically. Zahra, would you like to take this?
Yeah, so we've had the opportunity to work with some students in internship roles, helping us with our grassroots organization, nonprofit organization. And currently we are looking for support in social media content and research creation. The term would be 3 to 6 months based on relevancy and start dates. We're really hoping to, as I said, we're grassroots, so we're really hoping to boost our brand voice and put more forward our concepts and our thoughts and connect with like-minded organizations and find synergies with other like-minded organizations, and would like a little bit support from a little more tech savvy, less antique people like myself. So yeah, so please email us at opendialogueforbipoc@gmail.com if you're interested in an internship role.
Yeah. So once again, you can definitely contact us for that role. And especially if this is something that you're thinking of in between high school to university or in between university years, this will be a great opportunity for you during that time. Okay. And so I know that there are internship opportunities for us, and I'll let Future Faces discuss their internship.
Yeah, so Anissa's and I's internship is coming to an end soon, sadly, but that just means that they are going to start looking for the 2022 interns really soon. So keep a lookout on our Instagram for that. So our at is Future Faces of HC, and you can find all the information there. And if you have anything you want to ask us, you can always DM us, or you can email us at futurefaces@foundationphysio.com.
Perfect.
All right, so I'm sure we can all agree that we've learned a lot from Joanne and Zahra. So we really appreciate you guys, you ladies, for coming here today. And you just kind of highlight and show us, you know, the true success as BIPOC women and how it means, or what it means to, you know, put yourself out there and what the possibilities can be. So we do look forward to hopefully working with you in the near future.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to get into the highly anticipated prize draw. I know we've all been patiently waiting. But before we begin, Anna is going to share a link for feedback in the chat. And if you guys can please complete that and fill it out while we do the draw, that will be amazing. Thank you. And if there's no other questions, or if you guys have questions, just type them in the chat as well.
Yeah, there's just another question from Maya while we wait. So she says, thank you so much for the lovely discussions. I was just wondering if Joanne, if you could outline how you got your pelvic therapist certification, since there isn't a set curriculum in Canada.
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. So to become a pelvic floor physiotherapist, you have to have a master's degree in physiotherapy to begin with. I got my master's degree from University of Toronto. After that, you then need to do a specialized course in pelvic floor physio. I got that from Pelvic Health Solutions. And when it was offered in different levels. So level 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and then continuing courses afterwards. Yes, those, I've taken all those levels and then additional ones afterwards. Bear in mind, those courses do cost additional funds. So I'm going to be very transparent and very honest. Those courses, when you total them up, come up to about 10K after. It may sound like this now, but as you're going, it makes sense and it pays itself off. Yeah. So Maya, did I answer your question? Would you like more information?
Yeah, Maya, if you have more questions, feel free to type those in the chat.
Yeah.
There's also another question from Robert. So Zahra, have you worked with Delano Benton? Sorry if I mispronounced that. He's a childhood friend of mine and we grew up in Rexdale together.
So obviously I know Delano from being on the team, but unfortunately because of client confidentiality, I can't discuss work and who I work with or what I work with in terms of injuries or treatments. Yeah.
Yeah, so while Anissa gets the prize draw up and running, I did pop a link in the chat for some feedback. So if you guys would be comfortable with filling that out, that'd be great.
Alrighty, hopefully everyone can see my screen. And now we will begin with the draw. So first up, we have the $50 Amazon gift card. I have entered everyone's names on the sidebar to the right, and we will see who wins.
Yeah, all I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands
So
go up.
I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, but Adele,
And they
you
stay
have
there,
won
and they say yeah.
the first prize of the $50 Amazon gift card. So congrats. We will send you a message later on about how to retrieve that. So everyone hold tight. There's still 2 more prizes. Don't cry yet. Okay, and here is our next one for the $50 foundation gift card, which can be used to any services at foundation or any service. All right, here we go.
Cause all I do is win, win, win. And if you going in, put your hands in the air, make them stay there.
All right, Milad. So Milad, congrats. You won the $50 foundation gift card. So that can be used to any service. And like we said, we've had multiple clinics, so feel free to check it out. We have your information. We will contact you on how to achieve that or retrieve that. All right. Last but not least, everybody cross your fingers. It is the 1-hour gift certificate for a massage.
The best.
The best, yes. All right, let's see.
Keep your hands up, get them in the sky for the homies that ain't making it, my coach locked down. I never went nowhere, but they say in loot is back. Blame it on that contour, the hood call it Ludiac. And I'm on this foolish track, so I spent my bonus flow.
So Marie, congratulations. You have won the 1-hour free massage. Like I said before, we do have your information, so we will contact you and how to get that. Oh, let me stop share. And thank you everyone for coming. That's it from us. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to one of us. We have a slide, Anna, I believe, with everyone's information. Let me share that.
That's just the internship slide, Anissa.
Oh, just the intro. Okay, never mind. So yeah, we will send out everyone who won an email. And again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Joanne, Zahra. Thank you to Raj and Matt for putting us together for Future Faces, and to the panelists and the participants. So really appreciate you guys.
Thank you.